So this mammoth book that we have here is the proof copy of the Lyonesse role-playing game from the Design Mechanism. I received this a couple of days ago from Drive-Thru RPG, and I had it printed off just to use it for proofing purposes, go through, find some corrections to formatting, but also to see how it looks in a physical form before we go ahead and do the final print run. And I thought I'd share this with you, since we're all self-isolating at the moment, and it gives you an idea about what the final product is going to look like. Really good idea, actually. So I think the first thing that you can see here is that it's big. This is a very big tome. It's 510 pages. It's very solid. We've produced this in hardcover, obviously, and although it's been done as a print-on-demand copy, I'm very happy with the way that this has turned out. So 510 pages of Lyonesse role-playing goodness, and the book is a combination of both campaign setting and game rules. It is an entire game in one volume. It's very complete, it's very exhaustive. A team of 5 writers have worked on this, and many artists: Dominic Mooney, Dave Morris, Pete Nash, Mark Shirley and myself, Lawrence Whitaker. And we've gone through the entire Lyonesse saga and really delved into the background, the history, the characters, the story itself, and presented it in game form so that you can all enjoy role-playing in this marvellous setting written by Jack Vance. So why don't we take a little look inside the book itself. So here in the table of contents, you can see that the book is divided roughly into 2 parts. The first half of the book, in fact, the first 150 pages or so, are devoted to the background. We have an introduction to role-playing, an overview of Lyonesse as a place, the Elder Isles as the setting, and then the rest of the book is devoted to the game rules. And if you're familiar with Mithras, then everything in here is going to be exactly what you'd expect. The game rules are based very firmly on Mithras, with tweaks here and there for the setting itself. The magic system is completely different, though. We've rebuilt the magic to properly emulate the magic that you find in Jack Vance's novels, not just in the Lyonesse saga, but also in some of his other works, such as The Dying Earth. There is a very close similarities between the way that magic works in The Dying Earth and in the Elder Isles, and we've tailored the magic specifically to try and get across how Sandestins, I should say, work in the game. So let's flick through a few of the pages. So to begin with, an introduction to what are fantasy role-playing games. It's the first time we've done this in one of our role-playing games, actually. Normally we assume that people do know what a role-playing game is. Here we've decided to give a little illustration about what they are, how they work, and there's an interchange between the games master and a few imaginary players here. All quite perfunctory stuff. And then we get onto the Lyonesse saga itself. And what we've done is provide an overview and a synopsis of the books. Helps if you've really read the 3 novels in the saga, Suldrun's Garden, The Green Pearl and Madouc. But if you haven't, we've given a really handy synopsis of how the saga pans out here. And you can see some lovely artwork by Paul Sementilli. That's Droon there, attended by fairies. He's the son of King Ilis and Princess Suldrun of the Kingdom of Lyonesse, and he's a major figure in the story as it goes through. So from the overview of Lyonesse, some more wonderful artwork here by Les Edwards, who illustrated the anniversary edition of the Lyonesse trilogy, and he kindly gave us permission to use some of his artwork. We have a history of the Elder Isles, and we then start to get into the real nitty-gritty of the setting itself. The Elder Isles are an archipelago. The main island, Hybras, which is here, is surrounded by several other large islands, and they all form key parts of the story. This map was done by Daniel Hassenboss, and he's made a fantastic job of depicting the Elder Isles. To me, this is the definitive map of the Lyonesse setting itself. I think it's one of the best maps that I've seen, and there are quite a few out there if you look on the web. This is a wonderful job. We're going to be producing the map, this one, and several of the other maps that you find in the rulebook as a separate PDF. So you'll have those in a larger scale. You won't have to rely just on the ones that we've printed inside the pages. And as you can see, the book is in colour. That's a very important note. We don't use much colour in our books. We felt that Lyonesse was worth it, so we've used a fair amount of colour here. So after the overview of the place, we get into the detail of the 10 kingdoms, and this is really where the setting comes alive. Lyonesse is based around the machinations of King Casimir of Lyonesse and his intentions to try and conquer the whole island and turn it to his own advantage. There are 10 different kingdoms that make up the main civilization of Lyonesse, and this chapter goes into detail on every single one of them. Dacinet, Blaylock, Caduz, Gadelia, Lyonesse itself, a lot of detail and background. And here we have another wonderful map, this time by Colin Driver, which shows the duchies of Lyonesse and how it breaks down politically. A lot of information, a lot of detail in here. Just reading this section alone will give you a fantastic idea of what the Elder Isles are about, the people involved there, the different noble houses, how they work, how they scheme, how they machinate. It's a really wonderful, super detailed introduction and background setting for this as a campaign world. It really is detailed in most aspects. We go into detail about the location, the climate, the geography, the political situation, the culture, notable places, notable people. Here, for instance, we've got poor King Duel, who's the king of Pomperol. Something rather terrible happens to him at the hands of one of the major villains, Fodkar Filiot. You can read the book for that. And so we progress through, detailing each of the 10 kingdoms, going into detail about the forest of Tantraval, a massive forest that encompasses the middle part of the island of Hybras. And Mark Shirley wrote this chapter, and he's done a wonderful job of capturing some of the unique encounters that you can have in the forest. It's way too big to actually detail in one book. We'll probably release a supplement focusing just on Tantraval itself. So what we've developed here are a series of encounter tables to help bring the forest alive, where games masters can roll randomly for a number of different encounters that they might have here. I think there's about 50 or 60 involved, using a D100 table. And you can travel through the forest of Tantraval and encounter all this wonderful stuff here. Detail on the fairy sheaves. Fairies play a big part in the Elder Isles. It's very much in the high fairy folklore tradition of Western Europe. The fairies are mischievous, they're quasi-immortal, very difficult to bargain with, but they can be quite kind, they can be very generous, but they're also capricious, mischievous as I say, and they have a big part to play in how events unfold across the Lyonesse saga. You can play a fairy. There are rules in here later on in the creatures chapter for playing fairy characters. So lots and lots of background and detail about Lyonesse, the Elder Isles, and the kingdoms involved. That takes up about the first third or so of the book. We then get into the rules. Character creation here, the very first chapter of the rules section, and it's exactly as you would expect from Mithras. It's the Mithras character creation rules, but tailored so that we can reflect the cultures and the kingdoms and the setting of the Lyonesse saga. But much in here is very familiar. We have a new character that we follow as one of the examples, a character called Morgelt, who's an aspiring knight-errant, and two of his friends, Nonna, a roguish cutpurse, and Mercurio, a would-be magician, so that we can help showcase some of the magic rules. And we follow their story throughout the character creation process, showing how characters are built up, the different cultures here, the Celtic culture, the high brass, the Scar. The Scar are a Nordic race of invaders who have started to take over some parts of the northern edge of Lyonesse and the Isle of Hybris. Very ordered, very militaristic, very disdainful of anybody that is non-Scar. Fantastic characters to play, quite amoral, good villains, very good villains indeed. And you can play these characters. Background events, community, careers. Another wonderful piece of art here by Paul Sementilli, who's done a lot of the artwork in here, very evocative. This is depicting a scholar, and it's actually Master James, who is the tutor to Princess Suldrun, and this actually illustrates one of my favourite scenes in the entire trilogy, where Suldrun is asking all about magic, and Master James is instructing her in what magic really is. Wonderful passage, wonderful illustration as well. Skills and so forth. So what I really want to show you, and what a lot of people are going to be quite interested to know about, is what about the magic? So let's go to the magic system itself, and I'll tell you a bit more about it. Oh, we have rules for jousting in here as well, again written by Mark Shirley. The rules for jousting are complete. They tell you how jousting works, how scoring works, special effects, especially for mounted combat and jousting. Wonderful little section. But magic is one of the big sections of this book. And magic is split into two different types. Fairy magic, which is relatively straightforward and is the kind of magic that fairies employ. Relatively easy cantrips to learn, very limited effects, and they do a single thing very, very well. And then Sandestin magic, which is more powerful and involves controlling summoned creatures that create magical effects on your behalf. And all magic is subject to what's known as Mergen's Edict. Mergen is one of the archmages, the preeminent archmage of the Elder Isles, and he has forbidden mages from interfering directly in mortal affairs and political affairs, but that doesn't stop them from doing so. So, fairy magic. Individual cantrips, very easily cast with a single skill roll, and they have some wonderful evocative names. Pete Nash developed this magic system, and he had enormous fun putting these effects together. There are 100 separate fairy cantrips in here, and all of them have wonderfully evocative names like Agriva's Telescopic Fornication, Alarab's Facile Septum, Baz-Tizer's Tremulous Nesta, Bogwaft Clear Air, Broiling Charnet, Crushwill Tagalong, all very reminiscent of the kinds of names that certain spells Jack Vance describes in the Lyonesse saga, including a couple of the famous spells that appear in the books, such as the Tinkle Toe Imp Spring, or the Imp Spring Tinkle Toe. Here we go, Imp Spring Tingle Toe, which projects someone up into the air, twiddling their feet, chattering their teeth. Wonderful stuff. Very easy to learn. And this is the magic that most magicians will use on a day-to-day basis. However, we then get to the more impressive stuff, which is Sandestin magic. And Sandestin magic is the summoning of trans-dimensional entities called Sandestins, rather like demons or devils, and they are quasi-sapient, but very tied to doing one particular thing very, very well indeed. And the way that magic really works throughout the Lyonesse saga is that a magician summons a Sandestin almost instantaneously and commands it to do a single thing. The Sandestin then goes away and does that thing to varying degrees of magnitude depending on the caster's expertise, the amount of magic points, and their skill in their coercion and invocation. So If you want to, for example, create an ability such as drying something out, the desiccation ability, you summon a Sandestin that is a master of desiccation, and they do the rest for you. And the spells are very similar to how we have them structured in the current Mithras rules, but they work very differently in the effects that they have. The magic in here is very powerful indeed. Very powerful. Magicians can quite easily move entire buildings, castles, fortresses, or even armies huge distances. And that's very deliberate because it replicates the way that magic works in the Lyonesse saga. But of course it comes at a cost. The cost being you have to negotiate with the Sandestins, and magic points are actually random. And the amount of magic that it costs you for an effect is going to depend very much on a random die roll, and things can go horribly wrong. If you overextend your magic, bad things start to happen. So, Sandestin abilities, those are the things that make magic truly work. We don't describe Sandestins too much, we don't go into a lot of detail about how they look and how they feel, but there are some rules in here for fairies that you can use to describe a Sandestin as well, and given that they are similar magical kinds of entities, absolutely no reason why you can't. 100 separate Sandestin abilities that roughly equate to spells, and these can be combined into different natures to provide some quite horrible and powerful effects. This one, obturation, as you can see, closes up different orifices, and you can be quite creative with that one. So magic is powerful, it can be whimsical, it can be grotesque, it's always to be distrusted because it can go wrong, and when it does go wrong, it can go wrong quite badly. We also have rules for magic items in here as well. Magic items play a key part in the saga. The magical mirror Persilian is behind a number of prophecies that it makes that propel quite a bit of the plot. It's used to tell fortunes and, in good fairy tale tradition, answer 3 questions very precisely. Here we have the Never Fail, which is a magical item that's given to Eyeless by one of the fairy kings so that he can find his son Drun, who has gone missing. And it's a tooth suspended over a walnut shell, and it always points in the direction that Drun is in relation to where Eyeless is. Wonderful, evocative plot device, and we provide rules for creating magic items that can use either Sandestin abilities or fairy cantrips. Very detailed. Lots of information to go in there. And of course, no book about the Elder Isles would be complete without a bestiary. And the bestiary in here gives details of traditional animals that you will find throughout Hybris and the Elder Isles. Apes, bears, leopards. Leopards, I hear you say? Wonderful story about leopards, and I'm just going to quote this from the book itself. Leopard. Difficult times came upon the Elder Isles. King Olam, now deranged, attempted copulation with a leopard. He was savaged and died. His son, Uther I, a frail and timid stripling, no longer enjoyed the support of Mergen. Goths invaded the north coast of Dahout and looted Wanish Isle, where they sacked the monastery and burned the great library. So even leopards have a place in quite a grotesque way in the Lyonesse saga. But of course, there are monsters and creatures of supernatural origin, like the bearded griffs that protect Swear Smod, Mergen's hideout high up in the Teak-Tak-Teach mountains. Griffins, ghouls, halflings, not the halflings of The Hobbit or Tolkien. Halflings are magical creatures like fairies, goblins, ogres, trolls. They're all halflings to some degree or another. And here's one of the most famous, Arbogast, an ogre who captures Drun and Glyneth in a wonderful section of the novel Suldrun's Garden. Here he is in all his glory, fully statted up, but a typical horrible child-eating troll that meets his own well-deserved vengeful fate. And the book has lots of detail on fairies, halflings, creating them, how they look, their powers, their magic, and indeed playing them as player characters. Sandestins. Screamers, also known as battle chickens. Wonderful picture there by Eric Lofgren. Quists. People. And finally, to round out the book, we have a section on other worlds. There are a couple of instances throughout the Lyonesse saga where the characters go to different dimensions. Tangentially, irally, those are two that are mentioned here. And they are parallel worlds to the world of Earth. And through certain magical portals, Sandestin abilities, it's possible to step out of this world and into another if they're so aligned. There's a lot of information about creating other worlds that are known to exist, how to create the hazards that you'll find there, the people that live there, what their agendas are, the characteristics of the world, and there are some truly bizarre combinations in here, what the dominant society is like, and even a model of Twitten's model of the 10 worlds of Kronos, which is a wonderful book that appears in the Lyonesse saga, and some details on some of the parallels that are found in the book, including tangentially, that I've previously mentioned. And we kind of round out as well with some of the personalities from the saga, complete with statistics that you can meet, interact with, or even play in the game if you wish. Prince Ilas, King Casimir, his son Drune, Fodkar Filiot, Glyneth, Melanthe, Madouc, and so on. Lots and lots of information. So there we have it, 510 pages of Vancian goodness. There's a lot that I've not covered, obviously. The Vancian meal generator, the town and village generators, and lots of things in between. I'm hugely proud of this book. It looks fantastic. The artwork by all the artists, but particularly Paul Sementilli, particularly the maps by Daniel Hassenboss, are just wonderful. They help bring the setting alive. We hope you're really going to enjoy this game. We're very, very proud of it. We're very pleased with how it's turned out. And once we've finished our proofing corrections, it will be ready in a couple of weeks, and we're very much looking forward to bringing it to you. So keep an eye on the Design Mechanism website, the Design Mechanism forums, our Facebook page, and we'll tell you more about when it will be available. But that's all for now. Stay healthy, stay safe, goodbye.